You were never meant to heal. If that sentence makes you uncomfortable, good. That's the pattern interrupt. Because right now, millions of people are waking up every morning thinking, I still have triggers. I still feel anxious. I still get jealous. I guess I'm not healed yet. And that belief alone is quietly destroying their confidence. But what if the goal was never to erase your pain? What if ancient cultures understood something we forgot? That you weren't meant to become spotless. You were meant to become whole. By the end of this video, you're going to see why chasing healing might be keeping you stuck, and what the real aim is if you want power instead of perpetual self-doubt. Let's go. Modern healing culture has one hidden message: you are a project. There is always something to fix. Always something to process. Always another layer. If you feel anger, it's unhealed trauma. If you feel sadness, it's inner child work. If you feel fear, your nervous system needs regulation. And listen, sometimes those tools are powerful. Therapy helps. Reflection helps. But here's the issue. When every emotion becomes evidence that you're not there yet, you start treating your humanity like a defect. Now you're not just sad, you're failing at healing. That creates a loop. You analyze more, you dig more, you diagnose more, and somehow you feel less empowered than when you started. That's not growth, that's dependency. And ancient cultures? They had a very different lens. In many indigenous and ancient traditions, emotional pain wasn't something to delete. It was something to pass through. There were rites of passage, vision quests, warrior trials, symbolic deaths and rebirths. Why? Because suffering was seen as transformation energy. Instead of asking, how do I get rid of this pain? They asked, who am I becoming because of this pain? That's a radically different question. Pain wasn't pathology. It was initiation. Like metal in a forge, heat doesn't destroy it. Heat strengthens it. The assumption wasn't that you should emerge untouched. The assumption was that you should emerge wiser. And that shift alone changes everything. Let's define this clearly. Healing, in its modern form, often implies removal. Integration implies inclusion. Healing says, when this doesn't trigger you anymore, you're done. Integration says, when this triggers you and you can respond consciously, you've grown. See the difference? One is about absence of emotion. The other is about relationship to emotion. Imagine trying to delete your shadow because you want to live in light. That's impossible. Integration means you stop fighting your shadow and start directing it. Your anger becomes boundary setting. Your sadness becomes depth. Your fear becomes preparation. You don't lose parts of yourself. You lead them. Across cultures, the healer was often someone who had suffered deeply. Not because pain is glamorous, but because pain expands perception. When you've walked through darkness, you understand other people's darkness. When you've survived betrayal, you see red flags faster. When you've faced abandonment, you value loyalty differently. The wound created awareness. But here's the key. The wound had to be integrated. A wounded person who hasn't integrated becomes reactive. A wounded person who has integrated becomes wise. Same pain, different outcome. That's not healing as erasure. That's mastery through experience. Here's something we rarely acknowledge. In ancient societies, trauma wasn't processed alone. It was communal. There were rituals, storytelling, elders guiding interpretation, shared grieving. Today, someone goes through heartbreak, betrayal, loss, and they sit alone in their room Googling symptoms. We've privatized pain. And when pain is isolated, it festers. Integration requires reflection, but it also requires mirroring. You need safe relationships where your nervous system learns, I can feel this and still be connected. You can't integrate in total isolation. That's why community was central to ancient healing processes. Not endless self-analysis, but shared meaning. Now, let's get honest. The modern healing industry is massive. Books, courses, coaching, retreats, supplements. Again, many of these tools are helpful. But there is a structural incentive to keep you believing you are perpetually unfinished. Because if you ever truly feel whole, you stop searching. You stop buying the next breakthrough. You stop needing constant validation that you're doing the work. And here's the psychological trap. The identity of I'm healing can feel safe. It gives you purpose. It explains your struggles. But integration requires a scary shift. It requires saying, I have pain, and I am still powerful. That's responsibility. And responsibility is heavier than victimhood. If you're highly sensitive, you might think your emotional intensity means you're damaged. But what if sensitivity is capacity? The issue isn't that you feel deeply. The issue is containment. Think of electricity. Without wiring, it shocks and destroys. With structure, it powers cities. Empaths without boundaries burn out. Empaths with boundaries lead. Integration for sensitive people isn't about numbing out. It's about building internal structure, boundaries, emotional regulation, clear self-trust. Same sensitivity, different stability. Ancient wisdom respected sensitivity, but it trained it. Here's the reframe that changes the game. Mastery is not emotional silence. It's emotional precision. A master still feels anger, but chooses timing. Still feels fear, but chooses action. Still feels grief, but doesn't collapse. The difference isn't absence. It's control under pressure. Imagine a seasoned warrior. Do they stop feeling fear in battle? No, they've trained with it. That's integration. Your emotions become instruments, not dictators. And when that happens, you stop chasing the fantasy of being untriggerable. You focus on becoming self-led. Here's the final truth. When you integrate your darkness, you become harder to manipulate. Because you're no longer ashamed of your intensity. You stop apologizing for boundaries. You stop over-explaining your needs. You stop shrinking to be digestible. Wholeness makes you steady. And steady people are powerful. Not loud, not aggressive. Stable. They don't crumble under discomfort. They don't abandon themselves to keep others comfortable. That's not healing in the soft, polished sense. That's integration. And integration creates grounded confidence. You were never meant to erase your pain. You were meant to transform your relationship with it. Healing might be a phase, but integration is the destination. If this shifted something for you, the next video dives into practical steps to build emotional containment and real mastery. So hit like, subscribe, and let's keep going.